my behalf. As I've said to some of you before, welcome to today's session. Really great to see so many of you on here, and so hopefully we can have a really good session this morning. As it says on the screen, we are going to be doing some offensive analysis this morning. We're going to be looking at some simple attack versus a 6-0. The clips that we're going to watch are the Spanish national team from a few years ago. And it's looking at how through their simple attack they're able to create so much room along 6 meters for their players to work with. So we'll jump straight into the video. Before we do start, it'd be great maybe if you guys did have a pen and paper with you to either make any little notes that you want to make or do anything else like that as we're going along. So I'll just admit a few more in now. As I was saying, it'd be great if you do have pen and paper to hand. There's going to be some stuff towards the end of the session where you will be required to sort of draw a few things out as well. So if you want to get that ready now, and then in a minute or so, I'll start this video. I don't want to talk too much about the things that I want you to watch out for. I would quite like you guys to just watch this video in your small groups, and then you're going to go in small groups to discuss it. And then after you've been away in the small groups, I just want to hear whatever your feedback on what you've seen in this video is. Doesn't have to be overly technical. I know we've got a really broad range of levels of experience on this call. So I think, you know, for anything from something that feels obvious, you know, maybe to do with the starting position of players to sort of more advanced tactical things, all contributions are welcome. And we'll go a little bit more into that after the video. Okay, so I will. Oh, we've still got a few more coming in now. So I'll go on to the video now. So it'll start straight away. So it's only a short video. I think it's about 1 minute 30 seconds. So you're going to watch a series of attacks by a Spanish national team, and then we will discuss in small groups afterwards. Okay. There we go. If any problems with the video, someone just unmute and let me know when we'll get started.
Sarmiento, straight through.
Oh.
The defender was inside. It's only a free. Until midway through the second half, France was struggling.
Right, apologies guys. For some reason, the video is playing sort of twice at the same time. I've got no idea why it's doing that, so just bear with me while I try and.
Down the middle.
This is confusing, isn't it? Right, luckily I prefer the second option of the video anyway, so we'll just play it off this one, just in case there's any issues. Okay.
Sarmiento shifted left. For the moment. Hands off, straight down the middle, Sarmiento! First goal. And suddenly we have a bit more of a match here. It was very one-sided until then. Gorbindo. Sarmiento, straight through. Landed, but the defender was inside. It's only a free. Until midway through the second half, France was struggling. They were up to 9 goals down. They had dominated the last 15 minutes, but the gap simply too much, and that is a pet. Arena Zagreb. Sweden, who play their 5th final, having always won when they reached the final, but of course not with this generation. That was back in the... problem with Zacharyson, though, is that at 1.78 m, he's not a jump shooter. And Tradios, big gap!
Okay, so did everybody get to see that okay? It wasn't sort of like lagging or anything? Has everyone sort of had a good look at that? Yeah?
Okay, my end.
Yep, fab. So, in a moment, I'm going to split you all into breakout rooms. Whilst you're in the breakout room, it's going to be up to you guys to have a 3-minute discussion on what you've seen in that video. So I don't give you too much input on what I'm looking for from you. I just want you to sort of come back and say what you've seen, okay? So hopefully you took a few notes down there, and we'll be able to in your small groups. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had some good discussions there. This first one was only meant to be a very short discussion, hence getting you all back in so quickly, but hopefully it's been some good chats in your group. Right, I think that looks like everyone's back in. Okay, so now that it looks like you're all back, oh, still got people, latecomers coming in. We have progressed on to level 2 of our little session today. So there's a few extra things that are gonna come into level 2. There's going to be a group discussion in a moment, and we're looking to get as much contribution from you guys as possible during that. So with that in mind, when you feed back to the group, you have a chance to win extra sort of little bonuses for yourself. So in the final activity, you're going to spend around 15 minutes doing a task. So in that 15 minutes, you have a chance to unlock hints or tips from any member of staff. So you can either message via Zoom, or you can speak to a member of staff if there's somebody in your group anyway. And you can sort of unlock additional hints or tips from them, and they will give you a little helping hand with the task. So hopefully now, guys, we can get loads of contribution to this group discussion. Okay, so first of all, I will open it up to the floor. I know that it can be very, very difficult sometimes to get volunteers for some contribution when we've got over 100 people on a Zoom call. But if anybody feels up to unmuting and maybe relaying some of the stuff that their group discussed, that would be fantastic. So any volunteers?
Oh, I don't mind.
Like strength? Perfect. All right, mate. Well, yeah. So what sort of things were you and your group discussing?
Well, it always started off with like a centre cross.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really like simple centre cross, attacking the gap and then crossing with your the centre. No, with the back. Sorry, the centre attacking the gap and then crossing with the back. Absolutely. And it was kind of like if the first one didn't work, the second one will, and if the second didn't, the third will. So they kept crossing basically until the gap opened up.
Perfect, perfect. Do you think that the crosses are the most important part of that attack? Would you say?
No, the movement is.
The movement.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good answer there, Alex. I would agree that it is the movement. So we've used this example of the Spanish national team because I think this is a very recognisable style for any of you that have been watching recent sort of international or Champions League games. You'll see this sort of style of attack a lot. So hopefully it's quite recognisable to you. But it also illustrates that movement really, really well. It's really clear and obvious and uncomplicated in that movement. So that's really good, Alex. Thanks for that. Anybody else got any input for the group? Even if it's similar to something Alex just said, feel free to unmute.
Yeah.
Who have we got there? You've not come up with my
Say.
Go on, mate. Go on.
Yeah, so I was going to say, to add to that, when they were crossing, I found that it was always the centre defenders, the pivot and the line in the defensive team that were getting drawn out of position. And every time the attacking team would cross, the Spanish pivot would like change direction. So the centre players would get drawn out of position. And then when there was the gap there, like Alex said, they'd drive into the space and then just find other passes.
That's really good. I think you've captured that really well there, and you've brought up the pivot, which obviously me being a washed up line player myself, always makes my ears prick up. So in relation to the ball, you've mentioned that the line player was moving there. So what direction were they moving in relation to the ball?
Usually the opposite direction. So if the left back, let's say, was attacking towards the right side of the pitch, then the line player would move in the opposite direction.
Brilliant. Yeah. Couldn't have put that any better myself. So that's really good. That's or any playmakers, backs or pivots, that's a really, really important thing for you guys to know and sort of grow to understand as you sort of go on through your playing careers, is that movement opposite of the ball from the line player is really effective and really dangerous. And it's actually, I mean, there's so much movement from all the back players, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's all about their movement, but also it's that small movement. It might only be moving a meter maximum of the pivot, is really, really crucial to the way that attack is structured. Okay, so we've had two lads there who are both on the older side as well. So if we have any contributions from either any of the female players or anybody from regional academy as well, that would be really great. So have we got anybody else that fancies unmuting?
I was just going to say that the play it wasn't complex. Like, it was mainly just crosses and simple passing until a gap opened up, and consistency.
Absolutely, Oscar. So did you sort of make a mental note at all of how many passes there were on average in their attacks? Did that something you guys looked out for, or?
I don't really know. It was more than 5. It was above 5, because they would try cross and then it wouldn't work, and then the second one would work. Like, I don't know who said this. Someone said this before, and then the third one would definitely work. But the second one didn't, because the defenders just wouldn't be in position.
Absolutely. So those backs and playmaker. So I'm going to pick on you again, Oscar, just because you've made some really good points there. So as they're coming in off across to that shooting position, what do you think that player's thought process is there? What are they looking for?
Which player, the attacking or the defending player?
The attacking player. So as they let's say they've come round off across, they receive the ball, looking at the goal. What is their thought process? Could you talk me through it?
Where the defender's positioning is, because they can either go through the gap to shoot, or they can draw the defender and pass to the winger who's to the left or the right of them, so that they have a gap and an easier shot to score.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the great thing about this sort of way of playing, not just with the crosses, but this sort of continuous style of play generally, is that every player, once the speed of the attack has changed, every player has a responsibility then to sort of assess every option available to them. So if, let's say, left backs just come into the court off a cross, they've got that decision-making process to go through. It's either the shot or the pass, and I believe on most of the crosses there's at least 3 options for a pass, depending on the position of the pivot and the other backs. So yeah, that's really good, Oscar. Great. You recognise that there. Do we have anybody else who's got anything to contribute?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, because they're still going like one way after they've passed it, it kind of leads the defenders like still round, and they don't have as much time to react as they would like if they normally just threw it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so what you're saying there is sort of like they're not rushing into just shooting from distance or something. They're taking the time and really assessing what all the options are. Is that what you? It was breaking up a little bit, Hugh. So is that roughly what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant, mate. What we're going to do now is I appreciate all of that contribution. We're going to come back to this discussion in a second. But now that we've had this really good contribution from everyone that spoke there, and I have made a note of everybody's names, so your groups have some hints and tips in the back pocket, and we'll go over who sort of contributed at the end before we go into the next breakout room, so that you know what you've got to use. Yeah, what we're going to do is watch the video again now, and if there's anything new that you noticed this time, or anything that you think is particularly interesting on a second watch, then we look to contribute then as well. What I would really love to see you guys talking about is, sorry, I'm going to go back to the, I'm going to go to the slide. So what defence is the opposition playing, and you know, how does that influence what the attack are doing? What is the starting position of the attacking players? So look across all 6 players, all 6 attacking players, and think about the starting position and how that influences what the attack's able to do. Also keep an eye out for when Spain are changing the speed of their attack. And this was already mentioned, but how is pivot behaving? How is this influencing their attack? So we're going to watch the video again now. And yeah, just looking for more contribution from you guys after we watch this. So take any notes you need to take during this. Okay, so we've had a second watch of that one there, guys. Let me know what you think. Great to have some new contribution, especially from the girls side of thing and from the regional academy players as well. So does anybody fancy unmuting and let us know what their thoughts are?
Yeah, so the line in one of the plays sort of wasn't exactly screening, but getting in the way of the defenders on the 6 meters, which meant that when the backs crossed, there wasn't any defenders in the middle because the pivot was sort of keeping them over to one side.
Absolutely. So that's absolutely brilliant. I think that's a really, really good, valuable point there. What I might try and do is I'll get the second to last attack up, because I think that's, oh, sorry, I've made a mistake of using Canva for this video, and it's proven to be a bit of a nightmare. But if we get towards, yeah, so I believe it's this attack where they get the assist to the winger at the end. So what you said about the screening, absolutely amazing point there, and it is great, and that's what's creating the opportunity through the middle for the backs to come through. So I think it'd be great if we watch the position of the line player now and how their movement affects the space. So apologies that the sounds sort of duplicating there. But so Tosca, what did you think of this example? So you mentioned the screening when you spoke a moment ago, which was absolutely right, especially in the clips before this one. So did you notice anything different about the pivot's movement this time?
I'm not really sure, sorry.
That's absolutely fine. Absolutely. How about if you still stuck after what we watched it back another time, we'll move on to somebody else. But because your point was so good that you made a second ago, I just want to see if we can see the difference between the screening and then what he does in this one. So we'll watch it again. Oh, that's just the shot. Sorry guys, I'm having a mare here, aren't I? Right, bear with me. Bear with me. There we go. So you can see the pivot did something there, and it influenced the play of the number 7 defender in the middle. So what did you notice that time, Tosca? I will move on if you're not sure. It's fine.
Did he go sort of behind them so they dragged back to defender?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in every other, that's exactly right. Really well done. In every other clip, there has been a good screen from the pivot, and that has led to an opportunity from either 9 meters or for a breakthrough from one of the backcourt players. This time, the backs hadn't managed to fully engage either of the two middle defenders. So when this number 3 stepped out, it gave the opportunity for a pivot to run behind him along 6 meters, putting the rest of the defense in, and leading to a really nice assist pass out on the wing. So that's brilliant. You've really recognised there in both ways in which the pivot has affected these attacks. That's absolutely brilliant. You will get 2 of your little bonus hints because I picked on you so much there. Does anybody else have anything to contribute? No.
Like the change in attacking speed.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm sorry. I think somebody might have the microphone unmuted with a bit of background noise. So if you're not speaking, could you just pop yourself on mute for me? Whoever it is. I feel like somebody's watching a bit of telly and they've got the sound coming through. Is it Dan Murphy by any chance? Okay, well we'll just tolerate that. So Oscar, sorry, you were saying about the change in speed. Go on.
Well, they started off playing not as fast, so it was a lower intensity, and then as soon as they started playing faster and crossing more, the defense just couldn't keep up with where the attackers were, and that's how they ended up making gaps.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Would you say, Oscar, that all, obviously, in this attack we've chosen, they're doing a lot of crosses? Would you say all the crosses happened at the same speed?
No, some of them were slower, and then when they wanted to start attacking more, they would soon increase the intensity straight away, and then the defenders, they're not going to know when they're going to do that, and they have to react. They could.
Absolutely, absolutely. And who do you think was responsible for that change in speed?
The back players, the centre back.
Absolutely. So I think obviously there's 2 sort of ways you can try and change speed in your attack, and that's either the player with the ball does it or the player without the ball does it. So I think if we're looking at that example there that we've just seen, there were times when they changed the speed off that cross. So as the pass for the cross happened, somebody comes into it at a higher speed, and that's where the attack starts. And sometimes it's in that 2v2 that's happening in the middle. So sometimes when the playmaker comes in, he'll come in slowly, and then he'll change his speed, trying to create space for that pivot. And if you can't find the pivot, he crosses behind, and they carry on playing. Brilliant. Again, Oscar, really, really good. Has anybody else got anything to contribute?
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as the first attack happens, there's always another player right behind the first attacker that comes in afterwards, and that pattern keeps on repeating. So there's no chance or opening for a defender to butt in.
Okay. So you're saying because of the speed of all the transitions in the attack, all that movement, it's just not giving the defenders any chance to make contact, get the foul, and then reset. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely. I think this is something that all probably English and British handball players need to work on a lot, and it's how we keep our attacks going for as long as possible, but in a safe way, not in a risky way, and limit the opportunities for the defence to make those fouls. Zero defence when it's that open, as most of the opposition teams are playing against Spain there, it relies on tackles because you can't keep chasing people continuously as they're crossing. Just doing shuttle sprints back and forth along 6 meters. Like eventually you're going to get tired. Eventually you're going to be second best to getting into that space. So that's an absolutely brilliant point there, AJ. Brilliant. Have we got any more before we move on?
Did we say they were playing 6-0 defense?
Yes, I think somebody said that. I might have missed that actually. Yeah, you are right. It's 6-0. What do you think about the 6-0? Do you think it's closed and defensive, or do you think it's quite aggressive?
Like in my opinion, it's good overall and stopping people jumping in, but I say its weakness would probably be that there's nobody in front to put pressure on the attack, because if in the 6-0 defense, if somebody goes out for put pressure on the attackers, they can easily take advantage of that and go through the opening that he just made. So it trades off pressure for better defense on the line. So
yeah, okay, mate, yeah, absolutely, brilliant. So I'll count that as 2 contributions as well. So we've got a few of you that are on 2 sort of hints and tips for the benefit of your group later. Has anybody else got anything before we move on to the next?
I was just going to add with the 6-0 defense is that the very first attack that we saw is that the defense they weren't very aggressive and they were looking a bit flat. And the back player really kind of took advantage of that and really drove in and managed to move about like 6 defenders out the way in just one really powerful kind of move, which I think they really took advantage of the defense when they weren't on there, like weren't being really, really aggressive.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So with what Alice has said there, she's highlighted something really important, because for me as a defender, the remedy to stop what they're doing is to be aggressive, side on, and close off part of the court and send them in one direction. So you've highlighted exactly what the defence weren't doing there and how that's allowed it to be so successful. So I completely agree. That was by far the easiest opportunity they had through doing that attack, and I think it was completely down to what you just said there. So that's brilliant, Alice. Thank you very much for that. Ewan, Sharice written that you had a really good point in your group. I don't know if you fancy unmuting Ewan and letting us know what you were saying.
Basically, what I was trying to say is the back started kind of wide, and as soon as the centre did the original cross, they soon bring it in towards the middle, and it's very middle heavy attack, and the wings are just left in the corner by themselves. So as soon as the space or the wing defenders are drawn in towards the middle to help defend, there's a clear space for the wings on either side.
Absolutely, Ewan. That's exactly right, and the point you've made there, Ewan, is very much the crux of what this session is about. So thank you very much for that. We've talked loads about what happens in the early phases of the Spanish attack, the change of speed, positioning of the players, the positioning of the crosses and timing and things like that. But all of that is to create that situation that Ewan just mentioned there. Everything we do in handball is either to create 2v1, 1v1, 3v2, any sort of situation that we can get an advantage of as an attacker. So as Ewan said there, they often created a 3v2 with one defender versus, let's say, the left back and the left wing. They created 1v1 in the middle for somebody to just come in at speed and win their 1v1. And then they also created 3v2s where the pivot was involved as well. So we had a back, pivot and winger. So as that back gets the ball, he's got that option to give it back into the middle to the pivot, who's just stepped towards him. Or if the wing defender steps in, he drops it down to the winger. So absolutely, mate, absolutely. I think that's a really, really good point you've made there. So thank you very much for that. So we'll leave this section there, and we're going to move on to level 3. So quickly, the people who have hints and tips they can ask to the staff in the breakout rooms are Zai, Hugh, Oscar, Alex Trent, Tosca, AJ, Alice, and Ewan. So you guys, thank you very much for your contributions. I've given AJ, Tosca, and Oscar 2 hints and tips to use because I think that you guys contributed absolutely loads there, and it was brilliant. So as you can see on the screen, we're going to go back into breakout rooms in a moment. And in small groups, you are going to design a simple attack. So I want you to ideally write it down on paper so you can kind of hold up to your camera and we'll be able to full screen you as you guys talk us through it. So yeah, pen and paper, and yeah, just get ready to have a good discussion. This attack that you're designing, I don't want it to be the same as what Spain are doing, but it also shouldn't be some sort of really complex, elaborate thing where players are moving all over the court and sort of doing lots of fancy crosses all the time. I want it to be as simple as possible, And the key things that I want you to think about are, what's the starting position of the attacking players and how is that going to influence what the defence does? And 2, what are your options for continuation? So I don't want there to be any point in your attack where it's like, and that's the end. Okay? So I want you to design something where it's continuous and it can keep going and flowing and until you find that perfect opportunity in the defence. That makes sense.
Can I just, since I was a bit late, what are my 2 tips for again?
So in this last group discussion now, there'll be staff sort of jumping in and out of all the groups. So your hints and tips are to be able to ask the staff for advice or input to what you're doing, or ask them a question, whatever it is, but it's 2 things that you can basically ask the staff. Make sense?
So like little hints?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, it could even just be like saying, do you have any feedback on this? Or it could be saying, where do you think we could start? Or any other input or advice you want from them. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So there's no other questions. I'm going to set you up in the breakout rooms again. Bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, so you're going to have 15 minutes now, guys. So it's 1:45, and we'll finish this at 12, and then we'll have a brief 5-minute discussion. Probably pick on 2 groups to talk us through what they've done. We won't pick on everyone, because obviously we'd be here until about 10 p.m. if we did that. But we'll just pick on 2 groups, and it'd be great to hear your input. Okay, so opening the rooms now. So, yes, you should all be back from your breakout rooms there now. Hopefully you've had a good sort of productive discussion around what we've seen from the Spanish attack there, and how you can take elements of that and elements that we've discussed as a group into sort of creating your own little attack. So what I'm going to say now is I'll invite any groups that want to share what they've spoken about to talk. If we can pin whoever it is that is sort of speaking, so that we'll be able to see their screen as well, that would be fantastic. So is there anybody who fancies nominating themselves to go first?
I'll go.
Yeah, Luke? Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I've got it like drawn on a piece of paper. Do you want me to just like hold that up?
I think that would be really good, and maybe if everybody can, yeah, so I think everyone should be able to see Luke's lovely face full screen there. And then, yeah, over to you, mate.
Yeah, so like we've drawn it up, and it's one that involves the wingers.
Okay.
So the ball starts with either winger. So say you start on this side, start the winger, with the line player on the outside of the 2 defender.
Mm-hmm.
The winger's going to come round and try and engage this second defender as the line player switches down to the 1. So then they're going to try and bring them as far across as possible, which then opens up across for the back play to have an open shot. If that's not there and they somehow protect that getting round the screen, or wing play doesn't engage the 2 enough, then you can pass it to the centre. They can either reset it, go again, or bring it round and do the same thing on the other side, and this wing player comes round and becomes the line player on this side.
Okay. Has anybody got any questions for Luke or feedback for Luke after what you just discussed there? This is open to staff as well, if you've got anything. Okay, I can just see Tom looking out of his window, and it's distracting me a little bit. So yeah, no, Luke, that's really good. So I've got a couple of questions relating to that. So where in your attack is the sort of change of speed happening? So at what point in the little trigger movement that you've just shown us there is the speed of the attack going to change?
Change of speed is sort of as the wing player passes the first defender and tries to go around them to engage the second, and then they switch with the line player. That's the sort of first change of momentum there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, absolutely. So I like what you've done. I think that yeah, I could see it being effective. If I was going to develop it further and turn it into something that's simple and effective and able to sort of lead into a very continuous attack, I personally would change it ever so slightly into maybe the change of speed happening after the winger has passed to the back, and then the back can change the pace by playing the 2v2 in front of him. So it's going to be really similar in terms of the winger does want to engage 2 slightly to open up that space for the 2v2. Line play between defenders 1 and 2. And then if that left back is then playing that 2v2 until either there's an opportunity to shoot, assist the pivot, or continue play across the playmaker, then that would then give you an opportunity to, the winger would carry in as a second pivot, and then as the ball gets to the right pass, you continue with a 2v2 on that side and keep playing that 2v2 until pivots, until you find a solution. Does that make sense? Did you see the difference between the two and how it might be easier to continue with one and a little bit harder to continue with the first suggestion? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear that, yeah, because it's
Okay.
sort of, you're using the 2v2 more because that's quite a common thing, and it's everyone knows how effective that can be.
Absolutely. I think for any newer players, playing those simple 2v2s is one of the key building blocks of handball, and it's utilised a lot to try and draw in that third player or create an opportunity for yourself or the pivot to shoot. If you do draw in that third player, then you know that if everyone moves to the goal at speed, quick hands with the passes, that you're going to have an opportunity somewhere else on the court. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Luke. I really appreciate you throwing yourself in there to speak for your group. I'm just trying to get you off that. Get you off spotlight. Okay, so yeah, that's. Sorry, I'm being a proper old man here, trying to work Zoom. Right. Do we have any other groups who would like to share what they got down?
Yeah, I'll go.
Hugh? Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't drawn it out.
Yeah, that's fine. Just talk us
So
through.
basically, you've got so you got like 3 on one side. So you got the left back, probably a centre left back, and then the left wing. It goes over to that side, and you put quite a bit of pressure on, so it's not too fast. And then instantly you can you change the speed and you switch to the pivot, the right back, and the right wing. Who
where will the pivot?
Like it's a bit like the it'd be kind of in the like just at the center of the area,
Mm-hmm.
and so you got like 2 people defending him, and then you've got the right back who's in a lot more space because all the pressure's on one side, and if that doesn't work and the right wings has pressure put on him, he can pass to the right wing. Sorry, who can have a shot.
Yeah, so brilliant. So it sounds you've talked through something that, for those of you that saw my little share screen before, it sounds like you've talked through something fairly similar to this, if I'm not mistaken, but with the pivot in the middle. Is that how you sort of envisaged it looking, Hugh?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's brilliant, mate. I love the simplicity of that. That's absolutely great. Can everyone see the shared screen? Yeah. So Hugh's exactly right there, that we can just, it can do something simple as start with the ball on the wing, and then this simple pressure, as we said before, looking to draw in that next defender, and then that leaves the left back to attack the next space, playmaker to attack through the middle and potentially work with the pivot in that position, and then in the end, through what Hugh said, with the pivot in the middle instead of the 2 and 3 gap, you should end up with a nice 2v1 across half of the court to work, across a quarter of the court to work with there, which is as good as an opportunity as where ever going to get in handball, really. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Hugh. I'll stop sharing there and take you off spotlight, I think. Okay, so I really appreciate the input from you guys there. That's absolutely brilliant. I just want to sort of recap. We've gone over time a little bit, so I just want to quickly recap what you guys think the key points for today are in this discussion. Obviously, all the crosses and that look really pretty and look great when they're happening. But what are your guys' main sort of takeaways from the discussions that we've had as one group and also in your breakout rooms? Feel free to shout out.
I'd say change of speed.
Change of speed. Yeah, go on. Go into a little bit more detail for me there, mate, if that's okay. What about the change of speed?
A lot of times people mentioned how sometimes they start the cross slow and then suddenly change it because of the player with the ball might move a bit quicker. And I just think that is something that is not focused enough. Like in a lot of teams, I don't see there's not like an instant change of speed. Like you see it like, I don't, just to bring it to another sport, you see like Messi, he has really quick changes of speed. If you can bring that into like a player of handball, it's a little bit more effective because you're working in a little bit of a smaller area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like as well as a team, when you're attacking, change of speed can throw the defense off. It might make them a little bit more tired because they're trying to keep up with you, and it's just really beneficial to the attack.
Brilliant. Yeah, couldn't have put that better myself, mate. In your opinion, who should be controlling that speed?
I'd say either the centre or just the player with the ball.
Yeah, I think traditionally it'll be the playmaker. If it's maybe like a more broken down sort of like organic sort of attack that the team's doing, it could well be any player. But a lot of the time you're looking for that impetus and that change of speed to either come from the playmaker or be dictated by the playmaker. So yeah, brilliant, mate. Well done. Anybody else got any sort of key important points from today?
Nah, not really.
I'd say the players' movements.
Yeah. Okay. Go on, mate. Do you want to go into a little bit?
Yeah. So like, you could. It's about like moving the defenders. So you could do a centre cross, but if you do it at like 12 meters, it's not going to do anything to the defense. So your movement has to be like right into the defense to like move them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's about the technique in that moment as well. Like if we do that run with the ball held here in front of us, then you become a really, really easy target for the defence. So 100% with you on that committed run. And then we have to think about the technique that we're using when we make that run. It could be a case of if you come in across your sort of strong side, maybe you want to switch the ball into your left hand if that's your weak hand, so you can just pop it off if you need to, so that's free and available. If you're coming into like the middle of the court, then you want your arm pretty much behind you so that it's very hard to stop that pass. But yeah, completely agree with what you said there. It'd be great to have one more contribution from you guys. Alice, you were... Oh, I was just about to pick on you, Alice, and you unmuted. That's perfect. Go on.
I was just going to mention something about the pivot player and that to really change the kind of layout of the defense is just to move the pivot around, and that can really make the kind of like difference between and like also picks up the pace of the attack a lot. As soon as that pivot makes that kind of run across and move, then that can really shift, make a change in the attack.
Yeah, sorry, we've had somebody unmute in the middle of that, but that was a really, really good point, Alice. Obviously, as I said before, love hearing that sort of input because it's kind of like a lot of what I think about when I'm looking at it. And I think that you've picked that up really well there. Clearly got a really good understanding of it. Yeah, anything to add, which is always good news, I'm sure. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, guys, for getting involved. I know that doing these sort of things over Zoom isn't anyone's preferred way of looking at sort of handball tactical bits, but hopefully you feel like if you've got a tiny little bit out of today's session, that's worth it as far as I'm concerned. If you guys have any questions relating to this sort of thing, then do feel free to drop me or any of the other coaches an email about it, and we can sort of carry on this discussion. I do think it's really interesting, and I really appreciate that a lot of you guys have engaged really well. But yeah, so unless there's any other final questions or comments,